back. Sorry I had to step away for a moment. We're going to catch up here. We're right now currently covering pick 101 for the Patriots. They just drafted a Dalton Keene, tight end out of Virginia. Now, he's a guy who's more known for versatility than anything. So, they're very, very coveted for versatility in what you have there in New England. So that's definitely their deal. We got pick 102 coming up on the clock now, and that is Pittsburgh coming up. They've already picked Chase Claypool in the second round, who I thought was extremely good, high value pick at that position, and a great player to pair with Juju Smith-Schuster. And now they pick Alex Highsmith, linebacker out of Charlotte, who is one of these small school guys that probably should have been drafted higher. So this has been the theme of the draft. Okay, big school guys have really benefited from the fact that they really did not have the full draft experience for these smaller school guys. These smaller school guys really depend on the pro days. They really depend on the interviews and private workouts in order to improve their draft stock. But Highsmith has put as good a film out there as any linebacker that you're going to see. I really compare him to, like a Willie Gay. So he's really good standing up, putting his hand in the dirt. He's going to be fantastic stopping the run, rushing the passer. He's very, very widely used there at that Charlotte program, and really has put some good tape out there against superior schools. Appalachian State and Tennessee are teams on their schedule that are certainly better than them. I mean, we're currently watching film against Clemson, and he showed out against them. So anybody from a smaller school that can put good tape against big programs, he's going to be fitting right in with a Steelers program that's known for strong linebacker play. So Highsmith, I think, is a steal at this position, but you expected that kind of steal to be very frequent in this draft from these smaller school guys who don't get enough attention early enough in the draft process and really depend on the depth of the current draft process to get their higher draft positions. So Davian Taylor out of Colorado now going to Philadelphia at pick 103. Colorado is a school you were definitely scouting for Laviska Shenault. So nobody's really paying too much attention to their defense. He's not as versatile as Highsmith before him. He's a bit undersized at only 6 foot tall. Definitely going to be an outside linebacker for a 4-3 scheme almost exclusively. Does not have the size to fit at either linebacker spot in a 3-4 scheme, but he does have some scheme versatility as he has been stood up in the defensive backfield multiple times. So that big nickel position that you see a lot of teams employing, he does have some scheme versatility there. Not as much as like a Jeremy Chin kind of prospect, not as athletically gifted as Chin, but definitely a solid tackler with some defensive scheme flexibility that will more frequently get him on the field. He's got some polish to get in his coverage technique, but as far as being a solid tackler, that's already there. Yeah, I'm really happy so far with 2 of the picks from the Eagles. Real head scratcher for the Jalen Hurts pick. I understand they've had to deal with Carson Wentz injury in the past, but when you have a round 1 pick 1 quarterback on your roster, you don't draft somebody who could be seen as his future replacement this early in that man's career. I think that's got to be pissing Carson Wentz off right now. But the Rams are picking at 104 here, and we're looking at Roger Goodell in his comfy leather chair. Terrell Burgess, safety out of Utah. This is a guy that a lot of people had a higher grade on. So Utah is, well, they're underrated. They produce a lot of NFL talent. A lot of NFL talent. Just think in this draft, they've got now 3 defensive secondary members and an offensive tackle that have all come out of Utah. And previous drafts, you've got talents like Ed Oliver that have gone out of that school. So more recently, they've been producing some serious NFL talent, and I'm interested to see how that program develops down there, because the more players see your school producing NFL talent, the more players are going to want to go to your school. So they're probably going to be more effectively recruiting in their own backyard at the very least, because Utah doesn't really have a hell of a lot of options for solid schools. There's Utah and there's Utah State. And that's really it. So colleges can benefit a lot just from recruiting extremely well in their own backyard, and a populous state only having a handful of options that really produce solid NFL prospects. You're going to be able to recruit really well in your own backyard. So we have the Saints coming up at pick number 105, because, well, I guess the Rams have traded that away. Oh, no, Terrell Burgess. Yeah. No, yeah. The Rams traded this away. So the Rams traded the pick to the Saints at 105, which makes a heck of a lot of sense, because, well, the Rams have a lot of holes and a lot of contract needs. So the Rams have just buried themselves in the cap with all the ridiculous contracts they doled out, and they haven't given themselves a lot of picks in order to replace players that have to leave because of the salary cap hell that they're in. So them trading down to get more picks does make sense. They're going to fill the body needs on the roster. They're not necessarily going to fill the talent needs on the roster, though. So I'm really hoping that Sean McVay can put a good offseason program together and really coach these guys up and build them together as a team, because there's certainly going to be a talent void coming around the corner very soon for this team. The Saints have drafted so well in the past few years. They're just very, very well built overall. And here's Troutman. Troutman, the tight end out of Dayton. I know at least a handful of evaluators have him as the best tight end in this draft. And there's been a handful of tight ends taken over him. So, opinions are mixed, but he's a big boy. He's 6'5", 250. Coming out of a small school like Dayton, you're not going to have film that you can bank on is going to wow NFL scouts, because you should dominate the competition if you're playing at a small school like that. And if your film doesn't absolutely pop, if it isn't painfully obvious that you're the best human being on that field every single time you grace that field, it's not necessarily going to go well for you, because you're just going up against inferior competition. But he definitely looks like a pro prospect. Okay, he runs effective routes. He's a willing blocker. He high points the ball really well. Very effective hands catcher. Always has the ball away from his body when he's making the catch. So he will be a good receiving option. And let's not forget that Drew Brees makes relative unknowns look like superstars as receivers all the damn time. Okay? Wide receivers and tight ends that you've never heard of come out of games from the Saints having put up 2 touchdowns on people. So that's a regular thing for the Saints. So I think he'll be effective in that offense. Sean Payton's going to know how to use his skill set and do something very well with it. So the Ravens are up again. They've had a lot of draft picks in this second and third round range. And for a team that's as well built as them already, it's almost criminal seeing how many draft picks they also have to fill this roster even more. So this front office really knows its shit. Eric DeCosta has been the right-hand man of Ozzie Newsome since the Ravens' inception. And he has had multiple offers to be a GM for other teams, and he has held strong with that franchise. And more power to him. He was very, very loyal to Ozzie Newsome, and he ends up being his hand-picked successor. And I'm sure they paid the man very well to stay there over the other GM offers that he was getting. But the pick is in, and DeCosta seems to be just as effective at drafting as Ozzie Newsome was during his career. And Newsome was easily, in my mind, the best talent evaluator in the league from the GM position. So pick 106, the last pick tonight. Let us just get this in, folks. Tyree Phillips out of Mississippi State. Offensive line is a position they've definitely needed to address. And you see this a lot. You have the feed from ESPN and NFL Network showing him as a tackle, and you have the commissioner of the league addressing him as a guard. So you're looking at positional flexibility. You're looking at a guy who has played tackle and guard for Mississippi State. Now, previously, I have mentioned that Mississippi State is a program that produces a lot of shitheads. I mean it. Like people that have a lot of problems off the field, people that are beating the crap out of their girlfriends and coming into the program with 3 kids and leaving with 2. They're not a program that cares about character. So a lot of people from Mississippi State who put immaculate film out there, they just terrify the other team because of their talent, drop down boards because that program is known for just pumping douchebags into the league. They have done nothing to quell that either. They have a lot of problems. They've had 8-game suspensions for like half the team more recently. So I'm not happy with the character level of Mississippi State players, but you cannot deny the talent either. So a lot of these NFL teams are going to draft them in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. And they're going to get very talented players that are very effective on the field, but they're also going to get people that they have to worry about when they punch out at the end of the day. They have to worry about what the hell is this guy going to do out there in the world now that I'm not holding his hand. So a Mississippi State program really needs to clean up their shit. And well, the NFL is helping them do that by drafting all these douchebags right now. So that is the end of the 3rd round. Sorry about the tail end there, losing the feed and having to recheck in, but feel free to hit me up on Instagram and comment on these. Keep the conversation going for the draft. I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow, 4th through 7th round. Whole bunch of names nobody's ever fucking heard of going on in the next few rounds, but it's always interesting to talk about how these rosters are being built because the 4th through 7th round builds the back end of the roster. It builds your special teams. And a lot of these guys do end up making it big. The Bills just traded for Stefon Diggs, gave up a 1st round pick for him. And he was a 4th or 5th round pick, I want to say, for Minnesota. So some of these guys can definitely make it big in the league. And it's interesting to see their start, see who they were drafted over, who was drafted ahead of them at their same position, especially in a situation like Diggs, where he's easily one of the best wide receivers that was taken in his draft year. And to see the first round and second round wide receivers that were drafted in front of a guy that's put up better numbers in his career is going to be interesting. So I always like watching the end of the draft to see these names come, especially to my team, um, and to just put to mind where these guys were drafted. Brett Favre was a fourth round pick and a backup for Atlanta forever before he eventually got traded to Green Bay because they remember what he was like when they scouted him. And they wanted to take a flyer on him in a late round pick, but somebody else beat him to it. So a lot of the trades that happen later on in these guys' careers are predicated on the film that they put out and the grades that they were getting in the pre-draft process. And that's what makes this draft so damn interesting to me because that pre-draft process has been truncated. So you're not getting the interviews, you're not getting the pro days, you're not getting the private workouts at these teams because a lot of times these teams bring people in for workouts because they were from a smaller school and they don't have tape against really good competition. So they want to see them in person. They want to work them out with their coaches. And they just have not been able to do that this year. So you're getting a lot of big school players that are way overdrafted. AJ Terrell. Um, that are going ahead of smaller school players like a Jalen Johnson, um, who definitely should have been drafted ahead of them. So this is very interesting to me. Um, I hope it's very interesting to you. I'm going to be here again tomorrow doing the same damn thing, covering every round of the draft. So whatever you want to do, we will talk about any team's roster development. Hit me up in the chat. I will see you again tomorrow, guys.